They called him a traitor before they ever called him a hero. In the icy dawn light of Kandahar, Captain Aiden Ross stood alone on the edge of a runway, the weight of 1,000 unspoken words pressing against his chest. His uniform, once a symbol of pride, now felt like chains. The American flag fluttered high above him, but for the first time, Aiden couldn't feel its warmth. Behind him, the echo of boots and whispers carried the same word: disgrace. In the eyes of his command, he was no longer a soldier. He was the man who had defied orders. The man who had risked everything for something the Army could never admit was right. It began 6 months earlier, deep inside the heart of Afghanistan. Aiden was leading the 112th Infantry, a unit known for precision and discipline. He wasn't the loudest or the toughest, but his men would have followed him through hell, because he led with heart. His leadership was built not on fear but trust. He knew their families, their stories, their fears. He believed that being a commander wasn't about giving orders. It was about carrying the lives of others on your shoulders and never letting them fall. One night, during a classified reconnaissance mission near the Helmand Valley, intelligence reported a high-value insurgent target hiding in a civilian compound. The order from command was clear: level the site before dawn. But Aiden's scouts had seen something different. There were no armed men, no signs of combatants, just families, women and children sleeping in mud brick homes. The target, it seemed, had moved hours before. The new intel hadn't reached headquarters, and if they followed orders, innocent lives would be lost. Aiden made the call that would change his life. He disobeyed direct orders. Instead of launching the strike, he ordered his men to stand down. He radioed headquarters requesting verification, but was met with static and silence. He waited. Every minute felt like a year. The dawn broke and the airstrike command finally came through again. Too late. The window was gone and the operation failed. To his superiors, it was insubordination. To Aiden, it was humanity. 3 days later, military investigators arrived at his camp. His command was suspended, his weapon was confiscated, and the words "pending court-martial" were whispered like a curse. His men tried to defend him, tried to speak the truth, but they were silenced by the chain of command. What the public would never see were the photos, the faces of the families Aiden had saved that morning, the children who would have been lost if he had followed orders. Those pictures were locked away, classified, buried under national security. The Army needed a scapegoat, a message, a reminder that orders come before conscience. The trial began in a cold, echoing room back at Fort Bragg. Aiden sat there, stripped of rank and pride, his medals removed, his name dragged through the mud. The prosecution called him reckless. They said his hesitation had endangered his team. But those who had fought beside him knew better. They remembered the morning after the mission, the locals bringing food to the camp, the tears in their eyes as they thanked the soldiers who had chosen mercy over fire. None of that made it into the official record. For weeks, Aiden endured the slow humiliation of a man being dismantled. Every time the judge's gavel struck, it was another piece of his soul breaking. But he never raised his voice. He never fought back in anger. Because he knew, sometimes the truth needs to bleed in silence before it can heal the world. The night before the verdict, Aiden sat alone in his barracks, staring at the folded flag that once draped his father's coffin. His father had died in Iraq, a hero by every measure, and yet Aiden couldn't shake the question that haunted him. What does honor really mean, obedience or compassion? He wrote a letter that night, not to the court, not to his lawyers, but to his men. "If this is the price for doing what's right," he wrote, "then I'll pay it twice. Because a soldier's duty isn't to orders, it's to the soul of humanity itself." When the verdict came, the room was silent. "Captain Aiden Ross," the judge declared, "you are hereby dismissed from service with dishonor." The words struck harder than bullets. His uniform was stripped, his insignia torn, his name erased from the records that once celebrated him. To the world, he was done. Another cautionary tale of defiance. But outside that courtroom, something unexpected happened. The soldiers who had served under him, the same men who had once been told to stay silent, stood waiting. Each one saluted as he walked past. Not one word was spoken, but their eyes said everything. They knew who he truly was. Months passed. Aiden disappeared from the headlines, from military files, from the very institution he had once given his life to protect. He moved to a quiet town in Montana, where he spent his days fixing old farm equipment and watching the sunset over the mountains. The war had taken enough from him, his brothers, his career, his name, but not his conscience. Then, one winter morning, a letter arrived. It wasn't from the army, but from a journalist named Sarah Keene, who had been investigating declassified reports from that same mission in Helmand. What she found shattered everything the army had tried to hide. Drone footage, leaked years later, showed the truth. There were civilians in that compound, and the strike Aiden refused to authorize would have killed dozens of innocent families. The truth was finally out. Sarah's story spread quietly at first, a few online outlets, then national coverage. Court-martialed for honor, the headlines read. But what truly moved the nation wasn't the scandal. It was the man who never sought revenge. When asked by reporters if he felt vindicated, Aiden simply said, "No, because no one wins when truth comes too late." The army eventually issued a private apology. His record was cleared, his discharge reclassified as honorable. But by then, Aiden didn't need it. He had already made peace with what mattered most. He started a small foundation for veterans suffering moral injuries, the unseen wounds that come not from battle, but from the conflict between duty and conscience. And every year, on the anniversary of that mission, he visited a small Afghan refugee family who had managed to reach the U.S., the very family his decision had saved. They called him their guardian. He called them his second chance. In time, the story of Captain Aiden Ross became something larger than scandal or redemption. It became a quiet reminder of what honor truly is, not blind obedience, but the courage to stand alone for what's right. The army tried to hide his story, but you can't bury the kind of truth that lives in the hearts of those who refuse to forget. Even now, years later, when soldiers speak of him in hushed tones, they don't talk about his court-martial. They talk about the man who chose compassion over command, the soldier who walked away from glory to protect the innocent, the officer who lost everything and but kept his soul. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and share it, because stories like Aiden's deserve to live forever. Comment below. What does honor mean to you? Obedience or conscience?